And hello, everybody. Welcome to our very special review of Saturday night's mid-card. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting from the rain-infested Toronto that has been pummeled today. Do you know my parents have been out of power for 3 hours as we speak?
Oh no.
Yes. So
Oh, that
parts of the
sounds
city have
terrible.
lost power. It's been nonstop rain all day long.
And it's set to go until like sometime tomorrow
Yes.
morning.
Yes.
So this weather has been wild, and I feel like people are sick of us hearing us talk about
Are
Toronto
we
weather.
allowed to
But
talk about this topic? Is this one of the approved topics we can discuss on
I
our show?
mean, we do focus a whole lot on it, but it's been just pretty weird. Like, we earlier this week we had like honestly like deep summer temperatures, like 30 degrees. And this week, like I've had to switch my heat back on,
Oh man,
and flooding and just yeah, craziness.
flooding? Did you say?
No, not us,
Oh
but elsewhere, I'm sure.
well, I'm looking. I want some snow in May.
You might get it at this rate.
We might. Well,
Yeah.
let's kick it to June. I want some snow in June.
You know
Just
what? Yeah,
cause.
sure. This year, yeah, possible.
Way this show was so important that this was one of those really. Please take us into the editorial decision making that you decided to go with for tonight's graphics with Penta and Ethan Page. This was one where you had 5 candidates. Like, what will be the headliner on this show? It could have been any of them. For quite honestly, like
I s-
we had 5 matches.
I simply went with like what they advertise as the main event, which was not the main event. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but this seemed to be the match, Penta versus Page that received the most profile, most feature, but that's really not saying much, John. Like this is the type of show that I think makes me consider whether we should even be doing these going forward. Like, should we be dedicating time outside of like our weekends, taking people's time, to like how many people are even going to watch this or listen to this, for a show that ultimately is just like it feels even less than an edition of Raw, and that hasn't been the case throughout many of these Saturday night's main events. It's just this one felt incredibly uh, average and forgettable.
We had a pay-per-view 2 weeks ago, and we have a pay-per-view next weekend, and this is just a bridge to television. This isn't even like a bridge from one pay-per-view to the other. It was, and we said this in the lead up, like this was a very like the lineup, like this was going to be 2 hours of wrestling. Like you did get a good crowd, I thought, from Fort Wayne, Indiana. But I mean, I thought at the very least we'd have something with like a Seth Rollins showing up and like a big moment with Rollins. Not even that. Like this was a brutal match that we had in the middle of this show that we will get to as well. Just a very inconsequential show that I felt 2 hours of. Like this is a quick recap of what you could go through. And like honestly, the only thing coming out of this show is Becky and Sol will have a title match at Clash in Italy. So the important match is not tonight. It'll be next weekend. Like beyond that, what on Raw would you have to fill people in on the broadcast for Raw of what happened tonight? What did you miss?
No, absolutely nothing. I mean, because on paper this show looked so weak at a time when I don't think they have like such weak singular cards anymore for these sort of events. I thought they would do something a bit more newsworthy, whether it be a big angle or at the very least a title change. Didn't even get any title change of the three title changes that were possible on the show, and I don't know what that signals for like the future of this Saturday night's main event project going forward. In terms of like like all the fanfare surrounding it, they've already dropped. Not to say it made any sort of difference, but like the prior ones had Jesse, had like at least the panel, or at least like Stephanie on the panel. Again, not to say that that
Jesse on
made
commentary for the 2 hours, that would have made it.
not to say that would have made any sort of difference. In fact, that might have like made this feel even worse. But at least it felt like they were trying to make those shows feel special. They did not try at all for this one.
Well, we had, yeah, you're right. Stephanie took the night off. Jesse's just disappeared at this point, but they did have a very healthy crowd at the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Michael Cole tells us the second largest city in Indiana. Huge.
I'm sure factual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not impressive?
I'm just cool. That's the second largest city in Indiana. Very close in terms of WrestleTic's last number was 10,620, and Michael Cole announced 10,714. So we were within like 100 of the two numbers. They have not run a show here since a house show 2 years ago that did about 5,400 people. And Michael Cole even did note at the beginning it's been nearly 12 years since they've done TV here. So this is what Fort Wayne is getting, televised content. And we have Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on commentary. Lillian Garcia is our ring announcer. And we're going right into the opener, which is the 6-woman tag of Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss against Jade Cargill, Michin, and B-Fab, who came out all dressed in Michael Jackson-inspired outfits.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine this was an influence of the recently released movie that ends at 1988. Nothing happens in Michael Jackson's life after 1988, and not a nod to the upcoming 3-part documentary series on Netflix that will go into Michael Jackson's darker chapters.
Sure. Yeah, I don't anticipate those outfits coming out, but I mean, I always applaud for the lack of effort that I feel like the production made in making this show feel special. I mean, these three did at least make a lot of effort seemingly into this coordinated outfit. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. How many like this was Michin and B-Fab's WrestleMania tonight?
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rhea Ripley, who was just super over on this show. They mentioned Way undefeated at Saturday night's main event.
Yeah. Okay. And
they ruined the streak. They broke the streak tonight.
Mark it down. Yes.
Could have been Miss Saturday night's main event, and they just squeezed that one out. So they tease starting with Ripley and Jade, but Jade tags out. So after the baby faces have the momentum, Jade yanks Bliss to the floor, strikes her with a kick, and that shifts focus, where eventually Jade enters the ring with Flair, and then Jade nails Ripley on the apron. Michin comes from behind, attacking Flair, and this is where they almost did like a redo of the SmackDown tag match on Friday, where it was get the heat on Charlotte for a long time and build up to the hot tag with Rhea. And like the tag match that you guys talked about on Friday, like I do think like there's something here with Rhea and Flair. I think they work. They're a way more interesting team to me than Charlotte is with Alexa, as sort of like these monsters of the women's division that are on the same page. And that was kind of the story of this match until it fell apart at the end. But eventually we have a long heat spot on Charlotte. She fights toward the corner, place erupts when Ripley gets tagged, and Ripley goes all out here. Missile drop kick off the top, and Michin hits a poison Rana, spiking Rhea on her head. Bliss comes in, tries for the Sister Abigail. That is blocked. And then it is Flair getting tagged with a high cross. Michin hits a Styles Clash. Again, this was WrestleMania for Michin, so she's going, everything is being thrown out here. And from there, Ripley makes the save, and Flair boots Jade out of the ring, and we get Jade and Ripley entering together finally, and she tries for the Riptide, and Michin makes the save. Flair knocks out B-Fab, and she extends her hand to Ripley. Wait, it's the Mega Powers coming together on Saturday night's main event. And Rhea then takes out Michin, and the two come together for double fall-away slams, the universal sign of friendship. And then in the sign of, we're ride or die together, they do dual sockets. And the three of them have a group hug with Alexa, but they take the eye off the ball because Jade attacks them, pump kick to Rhea, and hits Jaded, pinning the women's champion 16 minutes and 50 seconds, leading into Clash in Italy when Jade gets her rematch next week. Your thoughts first on the match?
Well, the first thing you'll notice about the show, as maybe as disappointing it ultimately is in terms of result, this was a really good crowd, and they really propped up, I think, a lot of the, again, like on paper, not too exciting, matchmaking on this particular show. And like like we talked about last night, like you just mentioned, John, I actually find Charlotte really effective in the role of like being the setup for Rhea's hot tag. She did really well last night. She did really well here in just like, being at least somebody a bit more exciting to watch as they're getting beaten down by these heels. So they built up to another great hot tag with Rhea Ripley here. And I would say overall they did a good job of building to Rhea versus Jade. Obviously the closing booking I thought was strong. The closing moment of having the three, share this wonderful moment of all of them finally being good friends together, served as a nice little, calm before the storm. I guess pun intended here, before Jade Cargill came in to disrupt this and get the victory. So I thought it all worked out pretty well here. Of course, this is entirely a television level type of match and not necessarily something you feel is deserving of like what you would assume to be a bigger platform, like a Saturday night's main event. But as a lead-in, as an opener, I thought it was perfectly fine, actually.
I really like this match. I thought it was like the second best match on the show. I thought that I enjoyed the stuff with Charlotte and Rhea. The crowd you mentioned, they really added a lot here. And I mean, in their limited input, like I didn't see anything negative with like B-Fab in this. Jade was fine. I thought Michin, she got more spotlight than she pretty much ever gets. So I thought this really worked as the opener, and they got a lot of time for this as well. The booking made sense of having Jade pin Rhea. I mean, imagine that, the challenger that's going for the belt pin the champion to gain further heat for the title match next week. I mean, seems to write itself, even if you had like a baby face that could pin the heel champion going into a title match later on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would have preferred a botched Jaded and the ref gets knocked out, and that's how this one could have ended. But this one over delivered for me because I had like no thought about this. Like I wasn't all that intrigued going in, but for what this was of like this caliber of a Saturday night's main event, I really thought that this was one of the positives on the show. Kathy Kelly might have been the busiest person on this show. She was like on Renee Paquette duty here, interviewing every single person, starting with Ethan Page, who calls it not just the biggest night of his career, it's the biggest night of the Intercontinental titles life, as that belt will come to him tonight and Penta is going to hand it over to him. And then Ethan realized, oh, we're on third on YouTube internationally. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay.
I wonder why. Does it matter, I suppose, like what match you put on last on a show like this? But I'm kind of curious why they decided to do.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, it's you could have ended with the babyface ending, but I guess the vision and that visual with Braun was the stronger image they wanted to close the show off with. I mean, you really could have ended it with any of these, I guess. Then she interviews Sol Ruca and asks her whether she is ready for this non-title match. She says, the question is Becky ready? Maybe she's underestimated me, and she just needs one soul snatcher. I was like, yeah, that's the story of this match. All you need is one soul snatcher. That's all you need, Soul, and this match is made. And the next generation is here, and we're not waiting. We're going to snatch it.
Yeah.
I hope that's her new tagline.
I think she is falling into the trap of relying way too much on her catchphrase. Like, it's the Tiffany Stratton.
It's soul
problem.
time.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to mention the word snatch at every opportunity, and I feel like, I don't think she was like this in NXT,
No, I've never heard this tagline before of snatching it, or.
I don't know if it's just like because she has different writers or just like maybe for want of like wanting to introduce people to the catchphrase, they're trying to include it everywhere, but it's making her feel really like not like a real person.
Shout out to all my soulmates out there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the collective soul. They can go very far with this name.
Yeah.
They're just gonna drive this one into the ground. Of course, Sol Ruca's gimmick is she's allergic to victories, so it's really tough to build her up for a title match when she's not allowed to win or at least pin anybody. So we do this walk and talk entrance with Becky from her locker room to the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, she just did her catchphrases. And
it looks neat, but like she didn't say anything honestly all that memorable. She just did her
said
whole Sports
her
Illustrated
routine.
thing. Yeah. So I mean, it looked cool, but I thought it provided like there was an opportunity for her to say something a bit more sort of custom to this particular evening, and didn't. Really
They put out a
happen.
big teaser of this earlier in the day of Paul Levesque like walking her through this, and I would have preferred to have seen the directing of this.
Sure.
Thor, fucking Sports Illustrated is saying it, and fucking Bleacher Report. It's not just you, the man, fucking man. You can't say fucking. Although we're on Peacock, we could probably get a fucking in there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Paul. So Becky Lynch, we've got evil Jessica Carr as the referee. So that was a bit of a signal here. And Becky jumps Ruca before the bell, but then the bell rings and Ruca just goes on offense here. And this is looking good. She's doing like a lot of like high flying offense on her. There was a springboard buckshot, which would not be the only buckshot lariat of the show. And kicks off the post with a backflip. And then Ruca comes off the turnbuckle. And I watched this no less than 5 times to try and understand what this was. Michael Cole just starts saying, she was going for the soul snatcher. I was like, lies. There's no way. I watched this. It's like, there's no way this was the soul snatcher. And I'm watching this. And I was like, first of all, she did not rotate. So what this looked like was she just kicked out of the turnbuckle and like drop kicked Jessica Carr, who goes down. Michael Cole says she didn't get all of it. I was like, she didn't get any of it. Okay. This was worse than completely missing her. This was just, Wai is trying to play this, and it is.
I don't want to get flagged, but
okay,
yes.
let's not let Soul cost us as well. And so Carr gets nailed because Becky pulls Carr in front as a shield, and everyone's down, everyone's confused. It's like, what was this? And then the bell rings. Jessica Carr has called for the DQ in 2 minutes and 28 seconds. The crowd is chanting, Becky sucks. And she returns to hit Sol Ruca with 3 manhandle slams. And the conclusion of this is that Nick Aldis got off the phone with Adam Pearce, because even Adam Pearce realized, the playoffs are on. I'm not coming out to Fort Wayne tonight. Nick, book the match for next week. And this is what set up an IC title match for next week. So this woman who cannot get any victories has now been able to backdoor her way into a title match out of this. This seemed so simple. She could have caught Becky in like 2.5 minutes, and it's this shocker, and then you get the title match. Would that have been the worst idea? Instead, we just overcomplicated the hell out of this, and I don't know about it. Like this Soul Snatcher, we have now had 2 gigantic misfires on the main roster of this super cool move, but this one was awful, and it was the spot of the match.
Yeah, this one will be remembered and talked about because it was supposed to be, I mean, the reason for this rematch to exist. But even this like fucked up Soul Snatcher aside, it was already going to be a terribly booked finish. You know, this would have been at the very least, I think, your opportunity for a fluky win, if anything, just to give Sol Ruca some much needed credibility at this point, heading into an IC title challenge. And instead, they come up with about like the worst, most unsatisfying way to build to a rematch that I think you could think of. Who wants to see this rematch after this? I mean, some of the action was fine, was perfectly good, but you're not salivating.
It was 2 minutes. Like,
you're not salivating for Sol Ruca to finally get her revenge. You're kind of laughing at her. Like, or you're more upset about the product and the booking of it, because this was one of the more anticipated matches on the card, in my opinion. Like to finally get to see what Sol Ruca could do on like a bigger stage with a Becky Lynch. And instead they give us like basically a non-finish, non-match, only 2 minutes of it. And even a Soul Snatcher that was not effectively, executed. So really terrible all around. And all in all, I mean, this really, despite like the good action in Sol Ruca's matches, it really feels like it's a bit of a rough start for the Sol Ruca run.
Yeah, I just thought this was awful. I mean, the story you would want to tell is that, Sol is like on the verge of victory. The crowd is ready to see her win. And then it's Becky sneaks her way out. I don't think you're ever going. like doing a DQ finish, you know what the response is going to be. This was just, it's like, we're not even going to spend time on it either. I just thought all of this was terrible. Easily the worst thing on the show. There were several video packages going over the history of the IC titles and the tag titles later, voiced by Wade Barrett. These were nice touches for those matches. Kathy Kelly interviews Lash and Nia. They are younger, taller, stronger, better, and most importantly, bougier than Paige and Brie. And they're going to, wait for it, make history tonight. This is my new favorite phrase in WWE. They're going to make history by making them history and ending this nostalgia tour of Paige and Brie.
Like, really awful. I mean,
what are you talking about?
It was fine, but like, you know, we're thinking about the Jon Moxley promo from Wednesday, and comparing, like, somehow going from that
Kyle,
to, like, they're gonna make history by making them history. It's just, I mean, these are really weak.
Imagine Will Ospreay cutting this promo.
Yeah.
When I grab my wife's ass, you bougie. Let's go to Penta and Ethan Page for the Intercontinental title. So they go to the floor. Penta takes this backdrop onto the desk, and then Page is in the ring, as Michael Cole is noting, well, he can't win the title by countout. And Penta makes his way back into the ring, so it continues. And Penta sends Ethan to the floor, and he pretty much overshoots him with this tope con hero and grazes Page coming down. He was very excited here to be on Peacock. It's a head scissors off the top, tornado DDT. So some very good flying here by Penta, and Page is great working this type of style with a luchador. And then the backstabber is delivered out of the corner by Page. They're trading super kicks. They both do a double down with hitting boots, and then it's Ethan going for the confidence breaker. The confidence breaker. And then I think that was the finish of the last match. That was the confidence breaker. Egoplex gets countered into a Penta driver. Page kicks out. So the crowd is with this one. Then they fight on the turnbuckle. Page hits a power slam, and then he gets frustrated at the 2 count and removes 2 of the turnbuckle pads. And Penta gets hit into one, kicks out, and then it's Page running his shoulder into another exposed buckle and caught with a springboard into the Mexican Destroyer. Penta retains in 14 minutes and 25 seconds. A good match, but I'm not going to say it got to the great level. And I thought this one had the potential to be a real sleeper match on this show. It was perfectly fine, and the crowd was very into Penta, like just below Rhea Ripley level. Like, he seemed really popular to this crowd.
I think I enjoyed it more than you did. Maybe it's just, you know, given what I just watched prior to it, but I thought this was like a really strong match, and I thought it was really great to see Ethan Page finally get the singles platform, in the WWE at a relatively like early time, you know. And I have to say, like, I think judging by the opportunities they're giving him to speak, you know, to be interviewed by Michael Cole, and to have, like, you know, an extended match like this, I have to think that they must love him. You know, I think he's got every tool that feels like a great fit for this particular show. Like, he's got a good look, you know. He can talk incredibly well, and he can wrestle, I think, a modern style that just works, you know, especially for like the standard of like a mid-card IC title level program that, you know, is currently being set by Penta right now. So, you know, I was so confident, I think, in him and his capabilities for leading this division that I predicted a title change, and that didn't occur. But I mean, that's, I think, perfectly fine, because there's definitely still a bit more juice left to squeeze out of this Penta run. You still have a match with Rusev and maybe Javon even, you know, but to me, the quality of these performances shows that Ethan Page is very capable of not even just living up to, but exceeding, I think, the standard that is currently on the main roster, both in ring and on the mic. And I thought tonight was a very good showcase for him. Mm-hmm.
Kelly catches up with Scream Mode.
Yeah.
So get your notes out, okay? Let's go through here. Brie is grateful for Paige having her back when Nikki couldn't, and said, "I believe in the two of us, and I know that we can beat Nia and Lash again." And Paige explains none of this was supposed to happen. We are the underdogs, but we are going to win. Very confident going into this match.
They sounded better than usual, I felt.
It was fine. It was just another promo. The next Saturday night's main event, circle your calendar, July 18th at Madison Square Garden. I don't know if a card like this will be sufficient for Madison Square Garden. I would think they have to juice that one up a bit.
I would think so too, in terms of star power. Yeah, I don't think you're doing an MSG broadcast without.
But remember, that one that's 2 weeks before 2 nights of SummerSlam as well. So
okay,
we will see what populates that show in 2 months. There's a video on the Street Profits, and the only thing I took from this is at the end they did their catchphrase that we want the smoke, and Montez puts up his cup, and there was smoke coming from the cup.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, what's in there? So this is like tea?
It could be, yeah. Coffee, maybe. Yeah. Something really hot.
Okay.
Dry ice.
I hope not. Wouldn't want to drink that, probably. Brie and Paige against Nia and Lash Legend for the women's tag titles. They double-teamed they double-teamed Lash first, but then Paige gets nailed by a leaping kick. So they cut the ring off with Paige, and Nia splashes her into the corner multiple times, and then after missing the dreaded corner shoulder into the corner post spot, allows Paige to tag Brie. Brie hits the yes kicks, the crowd's chanting along, and then gets struck by a pop-up headbutt and Samoan drop. She is then lifted up for a leg drop by Nia Jax off the turnbuckle. Paige is in for the save. And then Paige gets the tag and leaps over Nia for a sunset flip, stacking her, and Brie is behind her, using her foot to give Paige leverage to pin Nia Jax in 8 minutes and 25 seconds. Mm-hmm. The underdogs.
They did. Yeah, they did. They won. They won via cheating, but when you're cheating against, like, when your underdog's cheating, it kind of becomes a babyface thing. So
good thing Jesse Ventura wasn't calling this.
I didn't overall think the work was all that strong, but I thought the match was overall quite successful. Crowd responded well throughout. They responded well to the Brie hot tag. I thought Nia and Lash did well in their roles, and I feel like certainly is something to be said about, like, maybe the crowd's attachment to the nostalgia act, which at least tonight still seems to be
the 33-year-old nostalgic Paige.
Yeah, well, yeah. Which tonight still seemed to be going on very strong. So it makes me wonder who they're actually holding these titles onto for. And, I would hope it'd be Fatal Influence, but we'll see.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't as hot on this match. It was, your TV match, which was fine. I don't have much to say. But look at this kid in the bottom right hand. I mean, he's just he's living for this nostalgic tour.
No, new fan. Maybe he listens to the Bellas podcast.
He must. Kathy Kelly interviews The Vision, and she calls the Street Profits undeniable. Heyman counters, saying they are deniable and will be denied tonight. And Logan adds that the two of them are the greatest crossover stars in WWE. I don't know what Theory has crossed over from. What was he doing?
Evolve?
That's not a crossover.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Anyway, Who cares? He says, you guys want the smoke? These belts are the smoke, and we will bring them. It's like, okay, they're bringing the smoke. Theory and Logan Paul against the Street Profits. There was so much heat here for Logan Paul. And it was amazing that this whole crowd in Fort Wayne, they all thought of printing off the exact same Fire Logan Paul signs, and they all brought them. They all had the same font. Same, yeah, it was amazing.
Well coordinated. Yeah.
But man, they just got, like, this was like a red hot audience for Logan Paul in particular. Ford frustrates Paul early on and does these they do these double flapjacks onto Theory and Paul. They clear the ring and they go to regroup with Heyman, and then they go to walk to the back. So the Profits attack them, return them, and Logan catches Dawkins with an uppercut and fires off a punch, knocking Ford off the apron for the heat. Ford returns to the apron eventually and receives the tag and goes wild on Theory and Paul. They execute a rolling elbow, is hit by Theory, followed by the buckshot lariat from Logan Paul. And then it's Dawkins coming in with a pounce into a German by Ford onto Theory, as they didn't have a lot of room to work with here. They followed with the Doomsday Blockbuster. In comes Logan Paul for the save. And then Montez Ford does his big leap over the corner post onto both guys. And as he's standing, Braun Breaker runs down and he runs around the ring. This spot was so awesome. Montez Ford leapfrogs the spear, and then Dawkins pounces Braun Breaker, who flies over this desk. This 30 seconds was the best 30 seconds of the whole show.
It was great because it just kept the energy and built it from like that great, corner Tope con Hero all the way until this finish.
It was just they were just going at like an incredible speed here. So Braun is taken out by the pounce, and they hit the anointment to Theory, followed with From the Heavens. The crowd totally is buying that this is going to be the title change, but Heyman gets the foot on the rope of Theory. Ford then goes after Heyman, and as he leaps off the steps, gets nailed by the brass knuckles from Paul. Dawkins dives onto Paul, and in that time, Ford is rolled in, and Theory manages the cover, pinning Ford in 16 minutes and 31 seconds. Breaker would eventually return, spearing both Dawkins and Ford, the torpedo spears, as they are identified. And then the Vision return, and they do a big group pose in the ring. No Seth Rollins, just the Vision standing tall to end. House shows are back, and we got one on Saturday.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll say, like, in the match itself, I thought it was maybe the hottest that the Street Profits have felt in quite some time. The reaction they got for that final pinfall attempt was massive. Again, a great sort of like stacking run from that corner Tope con Hero all the way to Dawkins dumping Breaker through the table, which you would not expect just given sort of their places on the roster. And then that awesome From the Heavens leading to that great near fall. And it felt like this crowd was certainly really wanting to see a title change for this evening. And I don't know how much weight you could put into that, like for every single town, but to me, it represents like an audience that it shows the potential that's still there in the Street Profits being a top act, at least in the tag division, if not maybe something greater. I will also say though, I think Ford feels quite overdue for a singles run. At this stage in his career, they've been in this company for quite a while.
Dude, I think both of them would excel on their own at this time. I just think they've beaten the Street Profits so much. It's just like, and this tag division is just on life support. It's just such a like going nowhere division, especially on Raw, where you've got a great heel tag team and nobody beyond the Street Profits. I thought this was the match of the show. I thought this was a really, very, very good match, like a high level TV main event that you got in the end. But I just have to say, like, it was 2 hours of. It was 2 more hours of wrestling for the week. I can't say this felt like appointment viewing or anything of any kind of consequence that these shows are going to need to have if you want to attract an audience for these. And, and it certainly they had a great crowd. So you can't fault that. Like, this crowd was into the action. But I just think for stakes, for just overall importance, this one felt a lot lower than past Saturday night's main events.
Yeah, it felt like they had almost forgotten about this Saturday night's main event in the schedule in between Backlash and Clash in Italy. These usually exist somewhere in between your PLE and maybe like an edition of Raw. This felt less than an edition of Raw and SmackDown, and maybe even NXT, because often NXT will have more consequences than this. This was just, a showcase of your mid card, essentially. And
like, you got Cody and Sami Zayn last night. That was easily bigger than anything on this show.
Yep. And, a showcase of your mid card is, to me, not worthy enough of, like, taking the time out to dedicate 2.5 hours for, in my opinion, on a weekend. So,
or at least having some big piece of news that comes out of this, like some big angle. Like, what you want to have is the type of thing that, something that you missed, that you would regret missing this. And I think in 2026, just saying like there was some very good wrestling, that's not going to be that. Oh man,
this should have taken place.
I really screwed up
at a golf course.
Yes,
okay? That would have made it worthwhile.
Bowling alley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of they've got another one coming up in AEW's booked another one. I think it's in Florida, another cool kind of like outdoor venues. So
Awesome.
I mean, it's a good idea to be finding unique settings for shows. I'm glad they're exploring those. I think that's something they can differentiate themselves with.
How about a bullet train?
A moving bullet train.
Yeah,
Yeah,
moving
of
bullet
course. I
train,
mean, with Io
MC
Sky,
Tokyo
of course.
Dome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Io versus Minoru Suzuki, interpromotional.
That's right.
Okay. Let's do a bit of feedback.
Oh, there's feedback for this? Really?
There is feedback.
Okay.
We have a few here. Jeremy in Texas. I thought this show was fine, but it lacked having a true main event. This company has conditioned its fans that tag team wrestling is not a big deal, yet the final 2 matches were both tag title matches. I thought the show would have benefited greatly by having one of the Clash in Italy world title matches or Oba versus Brock as its main event. Yeah, folks, that's like your ceiling is going to be like Oba coming here to sign his contract to face Brock. Like that's the ceiling you're going to get for a Saturday night's main event. Which you could have done. You could have done. Oba response to Brock Lesnar would have been the biggest thing on this show.
I mean, let's not forget they did have John Cena's final match on one of these things, so it's not like there's no precedent set for like a big match. But this did not feel like the time for it. And I don't know how much of like the new Peacock relationship has anything to do with it, but
I think there's a real ceiling on Peacock. Like this is not going to be. Like your bigger shows are Raw and SmackDown. This is not a case where you have a window on NBC and there's that hope like we're going to reach fans that like either don't have cable or just like it's reaching some hard to reach audience. No, you're now reaching like the diehard WWE fan that has held on to Peacock for the sake of these shows pretty much. Because there's no other reason for WWE fans to have Peacock now beyond Saturday night's main event.
To make this show special and just this series feel special, I really thought they would have started the John Cena Classic matches for this particular show. But if not for this one, I could see it maybe for the next one, just as a way to, again, carry on the theme from like that initial John Cena, like, NXT type of profiling theme from that last Saturday night's main event.
They should have had a video from John. Second draft of the John Cena Classic.
Explaining what the concept
We've
is.
heard you. We're starting this over again. Wins and losses actually do matter.
Yeah. Imagine if the audience voted on the winners tonight in these matches.
Yeah, I don't know if they would have voted for Sol Ruca. Should Saturday night's main event have a singles world title match on the show, or is it just a B show and an afterthought at the point? I mean, I don't have this belief that like you have to have the chase. Like you can build up big matches that don't require titles. They just like these were all kind of like these are secondary programs and that was it. Like there wasn't a whole lot to sell on this beyond, hey, it's Saturday night's main event and hoping that like that name has like, look, this show sold 10,000 tickets with this crowd that had no idea what the lineup was going to be. It tells you like they thought, hey, we haven't had TV in 12 years. They've got to load the show up. It's Saturday night's main event.
Given that they have 4 active world titles right now, like I actually think the answer is yes. I think you could put one on, Saturday night's main event. You could have put Jade versus Rhea on this show as a headliner, and I think it would have at least made this one feel a bit more worthwhile to watch, even if there was no title change. It would just like provided an actual main event versus an IC title match, which we all know is really not that. All right, let's go up next to Brian in New Jersey, who says, rainy holiday weekend ahead for me. I thought the show was just okay, with the best matches being Penta versus Paige and the Vision versus Profits. Great closing moments to the main event with a great evasion of Braun Breaker. The Soul Snatcher is cursed on the main roster. Also, the ref called the DQ win for Ruca without relaying that decision to the ring announcer. Okay, yeah, okay, I know what he means. He's just like she signaled for the bell and I guess didn't really indicate who's going to win, and so the announcer seemingly
they drew a conclusion.
Yeah,
that's it. All right, and the last one here is from Mike. Why is Jessica Carr always assigned to Becky Lynch's matches? Well, because she hasn't gone to the commission and requested that, which you can do in mixed martial arts. This is so insulting to one's intelligence. No reputable organization would keep reappointing the same official who is linked so closely to one performer or athlete. I mean, what is Jessica Carr's penalty here? Or what is her infraction? She's calling the rules on Becky.
Yeah, she did really nothing wrong. I mean, if you're the WWE, matchmaking committee, right?
It's not like she's like plotting with the other performer here. She's like she's enforcing the rules on Becky. Anyway, I know this isn't real sports. There's far more implausible things that happen in wrestling, but I'm sure Jessica Carr officiating Becky's matches is something WWE could at least make an honest attempt at explaining in their way. Well, they're going to explain this away by eventually having a match between these two. What reason would you pick to explain this that would make sense in WWE's world?
The reason is that it's pro wrestling, and a history of general managers showing bias in their matchmaking is not out of the question. It's
and
part of the expectation.
they have not done anything really with Jessica Carr that would be like egregious. Like it would be what your heel gets to dictate the officiating in your company. I don't find this to be one of those.
Is it fun for an audience to watch, to think that there's a Jessica Carr element in there against the heel like a Becky Lynch? Is it fun for people to see Becky Lynch be agitated at the fact that Jessica Carr is in the match? If the answer is yes, that's all the explanation you need, right? And yes, I mean,
and should they do that angle with Jessica Carr? Like 9 times out of 10, that angle usually works, where it's like the non-wrestler that stands up to the heel. They will, like, I feel they've done a good enough job that you could absolutely get a like pay-per-view match out of those two. Or
I don't know if I see I don't know if I see match period.
Then they've dedicated a lot of time to something that really has no end in sight.
I don't think a payoff necessarily has to come in the form of a match.
What would you do?
What you did tonight, like stuff like this, like she really is just a foil for the Becky Lynch heel character, right? And it'll occasionally pop up in instances like tonight.
Well, I think you push her to the limit, and then you finally, for one night, she hangs up her referee stripes.
Maybe a future Saturday night's main event.
Yes, that's the perfect main event for a future Saturday. All right, everyone, there you go. Those were your thoughts. Those were our thoughts on Saturday night's main event. And
this is just the warm-up, everybody. We are back for a much, much more extended podcast, I would say, tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow night is Double or Nothing, so we will be going live after that show, whenever it should end.
I don't think we'll have even started the review by the time we're done this one.
No, this show is not ending before midnight, not a chance.
No way.
So yeah, we will be probably going live after midnight, if not like 12:30ish. So we will chat with you late Sunday night here on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. Of course, in the meantime, you can catch Wai and Neil from Friday night, a great show running through SmackDown and a really great breakdown of the whole Ludwig Kaiser saga that is happening. Also want to make mention that every year, Karen Peterson does a big, extensive review of the Hana Kimura tribute show, and that went down today. Of course, she died back in 2020, and she... Karen, that is, did a really great review today on the show. So I encourage everyone to check that out. She gave a lot of context to the show and the overall kind of vibe of the entire show. So go check that out on the Post Wrestling site today. And with that, we are going to say goodbye to everyone. Back tomorrow night after Double or Nothing. Goodbye.